right. Let's get a divorce. In this situation, there's no way we can start over. But I won't be taking care of the financial troubles anymore. When I told her that, my sister laughed at me. What are you talking about? That's my line. You should just go on welfare, you poor thing. When my sister audaciously demanded a share of the property, the lawyer retorted with a sneer. You're the one who should be on welfare, aren't you? My sister was surprised by this turn of events and lost her words. Looking at the documents the lawyer placed on the table, my sister turned pale. There's no property to be divided between this couple. My name is Mandy. I'm 43 years old and currently run a company. I met my husband, Nick, when we were college students, and we have been married for 15 years now. Nick is 2 years younger than me, now 41. We have a 14-year-old daughter in her second year of middle school named Katie. And her crucial exam period is approaching next year. Nick has always been delicate and lacks decisiveness. But his hesitation over things like destinations during dates, or what menu to choose, endeared him to me. And I was drawn to him. Having a younger brother myself, at first, I saw Nick as a little brother. But I became attracted to him when he occasionally showed his manly side. When we started dating, I was already working. Our relationship went smoothly from there. Even when I was absorbed in my work and neglected him, he never complained. I couldn't have balanced work and love without him. After a long period of dating, we got married. Usually indecisive, he was firm when making important decisions and proposed to me. This contrast gave me confidence in our married life. Afterward, we were blessed with our daughter, Katie, and have led a happy family life to this day. We have never experienced major arguments or crises of separation with Nick. And we were looking forward to our second life as a couple until Katie became an adult. I thought our happy days would continue as they were. However, our peaceful daily life suddenly changed. Long time no see, Mandy. Hey, can I live here for a bit? That was my sister Hillary, coming to visit with a large suitcase. Besides a younger brother, I also have an older sister, but we have never gotten along. She would take my new toys and exchange them with her old ones, among other overbearing actions. She even took away my first boyfriend when I was in high school. I went to a different university just to get away from her, but she continued to interfere in my life. Determined to have nothing to do with her, I got my real estate license and started living independently. Nick and I decided on a photo wedding just between us after discussing it. Our parents knew about the bad relationship between me and my sister, so they kept quiet about the marriage. But somehow, my sister found out about my marriage and current residence. It was just when I was looking forward to spending time alone with my husband, as Katie was about to enter college. My sister entered the house without permission and began searching the rooms. Wow, Mandy, you live in a nice house. You even bought a detached house. Oh, there's a vacant room here. Then I'll use this room. Hey, this is troubling. What do you mean, coming here all of a sudden? How do you expect to live here when my husband and daughter are also living together? Even when I got angry, my sister ignored my words. It was a holiday, and Katie was at her cram school, Nick was out for work, leaving me alone at home. I've asked you repeatedly to leave before they come back, but my sister wouldn't listen. When Nick and Katie came home in the evening, my sister, hardly looking her 45 years, coquettishly introduced herself. Nice to meet you, I'm Hillary, Mandy's sister. Mandy, when did you marry such a handsome man? It would have been nice if you had introduced us or at least informed me. I found out by chance after seeing a photo at our parents' house. You're really secretive, aren't you? Nick knew about my sister from what I had told him, but he was a bit perplexed upon actually meeting her. However, I didn't miss something. That was Nick looking enchanted by my beautiful sister. When Katie came home, she was confused. Naturally, she would be, given that a stranger had suddenly intruded into our home. Yet, my sister aggressively pushed to stay, saying, "I got fired from my job and can't afford my rent or living expenses, so let me stay here for a while." Even when I objected, citing Katie's upcoming exams as a reason, Nick ignored me and discussed it with my sister on his own. "Actually, I heard about you from Mandy, but..." "Oh, it's fine, it's fine." Mandy was avoiding me. "So you were just going along with it, right?" Sorry about my sister. After such an exchange, my husband accepted the idea of living with my sister. This was the beginning of tumultuous days. My sister demanded money without doing any household chores, and even stole cash from my wallet at one point. This all happened within just a week of her arrival. I've warned her many times, but she doesn't listen. "If you need money, at least tell me what it's for and why you need it. Don't just take it from my wallet without asking." "Huh? Why should I have to report every little thing I'm buying to you? Your money is my money." My sister continued her selfish behavior. Though I hoped she would start job hunting and move out soon, there was no sign of her doing so. Moreover, the times when Nick and my sister were both absent started to concern me. Nick said he was working late, but his salary never included overtime pay. This isn't including overtime pay, is it? I think you should properly receive overtime pay if you've worked extra hours. Huh? Are you doubting me? The overtime pay is provided separately from the salary, so there's no issue. He became angry, his face turning red. Seeing Nick show anger like this was shocking to me. From that point on, I began to feel a sense of crisis in our current life. My sister was lounging around at home, leading to increasing expenses. Moreover, sometimes the amount spent on my sister was more than on things like Katie's school fees, which was frustrating. Regarding this issue, I went back to my parents' house to discuss it. My parents apologized for their lack of supervision, which led to my sister finding out about my marriage and current address. But they weren't really the ones to blame. It was my sister who had obsessively tracked down this house and intruded, driven by her attachment to a family she was distanced from. She probably started looking for our address as soon as she found our wedding photo. Her goal might have been to ruin my happiness again. And now, I began to doubt the truth behind her story of being fired from her job. Perhaps she lied to disrupt my life. If that was the case, I needed to find a way to get her out of our house as soon as possible. "Hillary, even if you were fired, wouldn't you receive unemployment benefits if you were insured?" When I asked her about it, she said, "Oh, I've always been a part-timer, so I wasn't enrolled in anything like that. That's why I'm in trouble." I had the option to return to my parents' house, but I can't bother them now that they're older. "So, it's your responsibility as the independent sister to take care of your sibling. That's just common sense," my sister said, making an unreasonable argument. I was overwhelmed by her assertiveness and couldn't argue back. Later, it was revealed that my sister had been living a part-time lifestyle ever since dropping out of college and had never worked as a full-time employee. This fact made it clear why her job hunting was unsuccessful. Seems that her being fired was not a lie but the truth. It appears she has become desperate, thinking she might as well leech off me and take any opportunity to steal my happiness. Within 2 months of my sister moving in, I stumbled upon her and Nick in an affair. Though I had suspicions, I never imagined I would actually witness Nick in an affair with my sister. This happened on a day when my schedule suddenly cleared up, and I was killing time in a cafe. As I was relaxing with a coffee, looking outside, I happened to see Nick and my sister walking hand in hand. They were having a pleasant conversation. But it's unthinkable for a brother-in-law to be holding hands with his sister-in-law in such a manner. At that moment, I was convinced they were having an affair. When I confronted them at home later, it was revealed that Nick's claims of working overtime were lies, and that my sister had been pretending to job hunt while actually going on dates with Nick. They admitted to the affair in response to my anger and said, "Mandy has been independent and earning, so we tolerated it," but in reality, Nick's pride as a man was hurt. "We want to start a new life with Hillary, so please divorce us." And Nick presented me with divorce papers. Right. Let's get a divorce. In this situation, there's no way we can start over. But I won't be taking care of the financial troubles anymore. When I told them that, my sister laughed at me. "What are you talking about? That's my line. You should just go on welfare, you poor thing." Then Nick also said, "You take care of Katie. Do whatever you want with the rest," and the two of them left the house. A few minutes later, Katie came home and was puzzled by the unusual silence in the house. That's when I honestly told her, "Your father and I have decided to divorce." Katie was initially surprised, but soon regained her composure and accepted the new situation. After that, the divorce was finalized, and I began negotiations through a lawyer to seek compensation from the two who had an affair. When my sister audaciously demanded a share of the property, the lawyer retorted with a sneer, "You're the one who should be on welfare, aren't you?" My sister was taken aback by this sudden turn of events and was at a loss for words. "That's because there was hardly any savings to speak of for my husband." Looking at the documents the lawyer placed on the table, my sister turned pale. "There's no property to be divided between this couple." As the lawyer said that, my sister looked back and forth between Nick and me. Nick also seemed surprised to learn that they had almost no property. After I witnessed Nick and my sister's affair, I confirmed that our cash savings were only about $12,000. This is an unbelievable amount for 15 years of marriage. When Nick, confused, claimed we were supposed to have more savings, my anger only grew. "You really had no interest in Katie, did you? Didn't we discuss her education expenses? When I said I would transfer the money I had saved to Katie's account, you agreed, didn't you? So, that money is now being managed by Katie. All the procedures for gift tax have been completed. I told you that." I explained calmly and plainly. Nick's complexion worsened as I continued to speak. "So, what about the breakdown of this $12,000? Most of it is from your secret savings, right?" Nick looked surprised at my statement, but I continued without concern. "Besides, you agreed to transfer the money to Katie. Remember? You signed this consent form." Nick was speechless because, having signed it himself, he couldn't deny it any longer. The lawyer also explained that since Nick agreed, that money is now Katie's, not a marital asset. Hearing this, Hillary turned pale and criticized Nick. "Hey, you said we had a lot of savings. We were supposed to live a luxurious life, but splitting $12,000 isn't much. Why didn't you realize this sooner?" Nick remained silent, unable to respond. The truth is, Nick was struggling with a low salary and student loan repayments, and had hardly contributed to the living expenses after we got married. This was after Nick told me, "It's hard for me to contribute to the living expenses. It was based on our agreement." I said, "Understood. I'll take care of the living expenses, so you focus on saving for our future." As a result, I took full responsibility for the living expenses. And Nick was supposed to save at least $700 a month. However, even after 15 years, the actual savings were less than $10,000. He was supposed to save more by not contributing to the living expenses, but seemed to have been spending secretly. When I accidentally found his bank book, I felt betrayed, though I hoped he might have savings in another account. But that slight hope was quickly dashed. However, after the divorce, such things became irrelevant. After seeing Hillary despair over the fact that there was only $12,000 to split, I decided to share another fact. I was hesitant to say this, but Nick, you're planning to quit your job, weren't you? How did you? I thought you mentioned that the overtime pay wasn't included, but actually, I was suspicious when I saw the paid leave being used up in your recent salary statement. All your paid leave has been consumed recently. Doesn't this mean you're thinking of leaving your job? It became apparent that Nick, who had hardly taken any paid leave since joining the company, recently had all his leave consumed. A behavior typically seen when someone is considering resignation. Since I began to suspect their affair, I wondered if Nick decided to quit his job thinking he would get a significant amount of money from divorcing me. It seems my suspicion was correct. Faced with Nick's overly optimistic thinking, I couldn't help but sigh. He was my former husband, who should know what kind of work I do and how much property I have built up. Despite this, he made a very short-sighted choice of cheating and resigning. When I pointed this out, Nick blushed. The lawyer's comment to Hillary, "Welfare is more your concern, isn't it?" suggested that the two of them, being jobless and not working, would end up in such a situation. Hillary panicked but soon insisted. "Wait, if you can cover Katie's college and living expenses alone, there must be something behind it. Surely, you're hiding assets. Just reveal everything and give Nick his share," Hillary demanded. Suddenly, as if struck by an idea, Nick said, "Right, Mandy owns many real estates, so that should be divided." They suspected I was hiding real estate and demanded it be included in the property division. However, the lawyer calmly explained the facts. "Before we discuss property division, let's educate ourselves a bit more. Nick, you're aware that Mandy owns real estate through her company and generates income from it, right? A corporation and an individual are separate entities. Mandy's company is her private property and is not subject to property division." Nick and Hillary were visibly disturbed by this explanation. The lawyer continued, "When we talk about property division, cars, houses, cash, and savings are common. And since Nick and Hillary have admitted to the affair, Mandy has the right to claim compensation. We're considering demanding $10,000 from Nick and $3,000 from Hillary." The moment I mentioned the amount of compensation, both of their expressions drastically changed, displaying a mix of shock and dissatisfaction. $10,000 for just a month or two of relationship? They protested as if the amount was outrageous. But I immediately dismissed their claim. Who exactly decided that is standard? You used up all your paid leave for secret meetings with my sister. And sis, you didn't job hunt but instead played around with my money, right? Considering these facts, the lawyer deemed the amount appropriate. Were you hoping to be asked for less? I could demand more if I wanted to, but you two don't have the means to pay more. Upon hearing this, they suddenly fell silent. The discussion that day didn't lead to a conclusion, and it was decided to meet again in 2 weeks. However, my sister, seemingly defiant, made an unbelievable proposal. "Give me the house and the car. Then, hand over Nick's $12,000 and we can settle the rest with $1,000. Maintaining my composure despite feeling angry, I rejected my sister's unreasonable offer. There's still a mortgage on the house, and the car was bought new just 5 years ago. Both are valuable assets, so your proposal would only result in a loss for me. I absolutely cannot accept such a deal." At that moment, Nick intervened. "You own assets worth $170 million through your company, right? I don't know if you're some real estate mogul or what, but being so petty about money when you have that much is ridiculous." Their far-fetched arguments made me burst into laughter. Their unreasonable demands and lack of realism were astonishing. After laughing and then returning to a serious demeanor, they were silenced in an instant. I addressed them calmly. Why do you two act like victims? Of course, I'm obsessed with money. My husband cheated and abandoned his family. And my sister stole him. If anyone's the victim, it's me. I deserve even more money for the sake of justice. They were stunned and taken aback. As the lawyer mentioned in our previous conversation, if they wanted to throw around legal terms, they should study up a bit more. The house was bought before we got married. It's mine no matter what. As for the car, it's in great condition since it's new, hasn't been in accidents, or had any violations, so it will sell for a good price. If you want that car, you should pay half its appraised value. That's the rule. My sister claimed the car should be part of the property division. But the lawyer had only listed the common assets included, not specifying any particular item. The only considerations for this property division should be Nick's hidden savings. And my total savings of $12,000, along with the two cars. It seemed Nick and my sister had misunderstood the situation without much thought. They were at a loss and eventually, Nick pleaded with me for money to start his new life. But I did not accept their shallow apologies or demands. Why should I support your life? You can't even pay child support, so there's no room for compromise. Seeing my firm stance, they realized any further resistance was futile and eventually signed the necessary documents. Even after the divorce and property division proceedings were over, my sister called several times, repeatedly questioning why Nick was in debt and insisting I should have been paying the living expenses. Tired of her nagging but still explaining calmly. It was clear from Nick's long-standing lack of savings that there had been significant expenditures. It was discovered he had taken out loans worth several thousands for luxury purchases, and had credit card payments ballooning due to revolving credit. When my sister accused me of pushing such a person onto her, I retorted with a half-smile. You're the one who stole him. Then I remembered something else I hadn't mentioned yet. This could be an even more shocking revelation for my sister, on top of Nick's debt issues. Nick has changed jobs to work in construction. But the company he refers to actually contracts him as a self-employed individual. Therefore, while income tax and resident tax are deducted for you, you need to manage other payments yourself. I've been self-employed for a long time, so I was covered by the national pension and national health insurance. Of course, I took care of my own matters, including resident tax. But it seems Nick hadn't paid the national pension since he changed jobs a year ago. When we were married, I handled the national health insurance payments, so there was no issue there. Due to some mix-up, a notice related to the national pension ended up at my place. I contacted Nick to get permission and then checked the contents. And it turned out to be a demand notice. I've been paying my national pension, and I thought Nick was doing the same. When I called Nick to ask if I could open the demand notice, he nearly cried, begging for help. Does the national pension cost this much? You're kidding, right? My salary can't cover this. Weren't we a family before? Help me out somehow. I cut him off sharply. What? What are you saying? Is that something the person who abandoned his wife and child can say? Again, my logic left Nick speechless. Realizing there was no way to argue, my sister, on the other end of the phone, also seemed to lose her words from despair. So, that's the situation. You guys will have to figure it out yourselves. With that, I hung up the phone. In the end, their marriage, lacking funds, did not last, and they ended up divorcing. This incident led to my sister being disowned by our parents, leaving her single and in debt. My ex-husband couldn't manage his finances and ended up declaring bankruptcy. Both my sister and ex-husband are now on welfare. In the end, their words came back to haunt them. But it's all due to their own actions, and they deserve no sympathy. Meanwhile, my daughter and I continue to live peacefully and happily together. My daughter successfully passed her high school entrance exams and has made new friends, enjoying her days. I plan to keep working hard for my daughter, supporting her in pursuing whatever she wishes to do. So the divorce papers are out, huh? Well, it's all good. I'm gonna marry Wendy anyway. I don't need a maid like you. As I was about to leave the house, my husband threw those parting words at me with a laugh. The trigger for this event goes back several days. Oh, what's this? While I was cleaning my husband's room, a photo fell out from between the pages of a book, so I picked it up. I thought, what is this? The photo showed a familiar woman and my husband smiling side by side, with him holding a child of about 3 years old. The woman was our former co-worker who had retired upon getting married. So the child must be hers. I convinced myself the child was simply sociable and not shy around strangers. As I continued to clean. While cleaning, I stumbled upon something unbelievable, a filled-out divorce form. I was then convinced of my husband's infidelity. A few days later, when I confronted my husband with the photo, he predictably tried to make excuses. But I wouldn't let him off the hook. I decided to enlist the help of someone to thoroughly expose my husband's true nature. I am Aaron Baker, 37 years old. My maiden name was Hill. Let me start with my story from the beginning. It goes back 14 years when I graduated from university and joined a leading apparel company in a local area. Congratulations to all the new employees on your entry into the company. I hope we can all work together to create products unique to our region. First, learn from your seniors and slowly and steadily get the hang of the work. After the president's speech, it seemed that the seniors who would be mentoring the new employees had already been decided. And they greeted us as well. Aaron, I'm Denise, and I'll be guiding you. Feel free to ask me anything you don't understand. Yes, thank you very much. I look forward to working with you. I was drawn to this company because it was reputed to be deeply rooted in the local community. And the president's speech clearly communicated their vision. How's work going for you, Ms. Hill? Yes, I'm able to work with peace of mind because Denise is teaching me thoroughly. That's good to hear. Take your time to learn the work. I realized through working that the president not only strived to grow the company, but also cared deeply for his employees. He always made an effort to speak to us and offer encouragement, which made me feel very reassured. The president really goes out of his way to speak to every employee and provide support, which is amazing. Thanks to him, everyone is able to work with enthusiasm. Denise, you felt that way too, huh? The president is truly amazing, isn't he? It wasn't just me who felt reassured by the president's words. Listening to my senior's words, I could see that the president was a person of great caliber. Time flew by as I dedicated myself to work under the president, and before I knew it, I was over 30. Then one day, a new employee joined the company through mid-career recruitment. I'm John Baker, and I'll be in your care from today. It's a pleasure meeting you. It was this man who would later become my husband, John. He was 25 at the time and had a fresh smile that made him popular among the female staff. But John's popularity wasn't just because of his good looks. Ms. Hill, could you help me with something? Yes, of course. What do you need help with? About this part here. This part is like this. John was very dedicated to his work, eagerly asking senior employees in an effort to learn his job, whenever he encountered something he didn't understand. John, you're amazing. You've already managed to handle the work on your own, which I taught you. It's all thanks to you, Ms. Hill, and the other seniors who've guided me so patiently. Considering his attitude towards work, it might have been expected. But John was quick to learn and soon able to handle tasks on his own. I was impressed by his serious approach to work and found it enjoyable to work alongside someone I got along with so well. Initially, I just regarded John, who was 5 years younger than me, as a cute junior colleague. Ms. Hill, do you have a boyfriend? Why do you ask all of a sudden? No, I don't have a boyfriend right now. In that case, would you go out with me? Really? Me? You realize I'm a 30-year-old woman to you, right? That's not true at all. I think you're a wonderful woman. I was both embarrassed and pleased by his straightforwardness. As we went on more dates, after several outings, John looked at me seriously and said, I like you, Ms. Hill. I mean, Erin. Will you be my girlfriend? Really? Me? Yes. I mean, I want it to be you. I'm glad to hear that. Let's make the most of it. And so, we started dating. 2 years later. Erin, will you marry me? Yes, I'd love to. John proposed to me, and I accepted. As we talked about our wedding plans and prepared to meet with his parents, a previously unknown fact came to light. Today we're meeting your parents. I'm quite nervous. You don't need to be so nervous. You already know my father well. Really? Have I met your father before? Well, you'll understand once you meet him. Arriving at my husband's home and meeting my in-laws, I quickly grasped the meaning of his words. Wait, is your dad the president? What, John? You hadn't told her yet? Well, I thought it wasn't necessary to highlight that I'm the son of the president. I figured it would come out eventually. There were rumors in the company about the two being related due to sharing the same surname and a slight resemblance. However, I hadn't imagined it to be true. I was really shocked to learn you two were related. So, does that mean you'll take over the company eventually? Yes, that's the plan. There's still a lot to learn though. I hope knowing this won't change how you interact at work. It would help if you treated everything as usual. Understood. After the marriage proposal, we smoothly continued our wedding preparations. And married a year later when I was 33 and he was 28. I thought, but what about work? After getting married, my first concern was about my career. I loved my job and found it fulfilling, yet I also had to consider my husband's future. Hey, John. Do you have a preference for me being a stay-at-home wife? Or are you okay with both of us working? What's the sudden question? I don't really have any preference. It's okay for you to choose whatever you like, Erin. I'm relieved to hear that. Thank you, truly. I was torn between a sense of duty to support my husband in his career and my desire to advance my own career. My husband gave me the time to decide without any pressure. And after several weeks of contemplation, I reached a decision. I've decided to quit my job after all. I'll take care of the house, and you will focus on your work, John. Is that so? All right, then I'll leave the household to you. Okay. Thus, I decided to leave my job and embark on a new phase of life. Based on the time we spent together while dating and observing John at work, I felt confident that our married life would be stable and comfortable. However, things started to change 4 years into our marriage. Throughout our otherwise mundane life, I found myself increasingly troubled by various issues. I occasionally met and sought advice from Denise, a senior colleague from my previous job. I decided to focus on household duties for John's career. But after 4 years of marriage, life without any children, and scarce couple time, I feel somewhat lonely. You were always so dedicated and produced great results at work. Perhaps doing only household chores seems less fulfilling to you? Maybe you're right. As for children, they're blessings, so don't rush it. Let things take their natural course. It's important to talk things over as a couple, and you can talk to me anytime if you find it hard. Thank you, I really appreciate it. Talking to Denise felt reassuring. If I had kept everything to myself, who knows how I would have coped. I felt somewhat relieved after having someone to listen. It helped me to think not to rush about having children, and consider discussing returning to work with John. Thanks to that, we could likely return to a stable married life. On a day filled with such thoughts, while tidying up my husband's room, a photo slipped from between the pages of a book. Upon picking it up and checking it, I thought, could this be? The photo showed a familiar face alongside my husband holding a child. I thought, isn't this Wendy? I knew her name because she was a younger colleague from our workplace. She was 7 years my junior, shrewd, and adept at flattering men. I never had a good impression of this junior, who, before I married my husband, was supposed to have married someone else and retired. So why was there a photo of my husband holding a child next to this junior? The child in my husband's arms appeared to be a girl around 3 years old, dressed for a baptism celebration. I thought, maybe it was just a chance meeting, and the child, being sociable, let herself be held by him. Unable to accept reality, I desperately resumed cleaning. But tears welled up when the next item I found made the situation clear. I thought, is this a divorce form? So, the photo means? The divorce form already had my husband's name filled out. Facing such undeniable evidence, I had to acknowledge the full extent of the situation. I thought, what should I do now? I couldn't let things stay as they were, so I decided to plan my next steps. After some thought, I reached out to someone for advice. The chance came a few days later to talk with my husband about the photo. I found this photo while cleaning your room the other day. What's this about? Oh, that is. You seem quite close with Wendy in this photo. And the child seems very fond of you. What's the meaning of this? Yeah. It was just a coincidence. We just happened to meet and got to reminiscing, and the kid was cute. So we decided to take a photo as a keepsake because we thought it was a rare occasion. With that, my husband attempted to deny any affair, acting as if nothing was wrong. Part of me didn't want to believe it just from the photo. And it seemed difficult to make him confess by merely accusing him of infidelity based on this alone. As I was contemplating this, we had a visitor at home. The person who appeared was a senior colleague. Denise, thank you so much for coming over. It's no problem at all. Don't worry, I've gathered solid evidence. The person I had reached out to a few days ago for advice was indeed my senior colleague. Why is Denise here? And what do you mean by evidence? John, you've done something terrible, haven't you? It's quicker if I just show you rather than tell. What about this? With that, my senior colleague laid out numerous photos in front of us. They showed my husband and the junior colleague hugging and kissing at the office, looking very intimate. Wendy was supposed to have left the company a while ago, but she still frequented the office afterwards. And you, having her hanging on you, look utterly foolish. Well, that's. Consulting my senior colleague was a gamble. The junior had left the company, so the chances of her meeting my husband at the office were slim. It seemed unlikely that approaching my senior colleague for help would conveniently gather any evidence. However, it turned out the junior frequently visited the office. and had been in contact with my husband. Denise, thank you so much. I really appreciate your help. It was no trouble at all. After you contacted me, I reached out to others who might be willing to help. Thankfully, everyone was eager to assist. I didn't realize that. By her making full use of the company's internal network, it became possible to thus gather evidence of my husband's infidelity. If the junior had not been visiting the office so frequently, we might not have gathered any evidence, so in a way, we were lucky. This can't be happening. Why is this happening? Seeing the evidence of his affair laid out, my husband was clearly distraught, realizing he couldn't deny it any longer. So, I decided to further confront him with another truth. Oh, and about the divorce papers with your name already filled out that I found the other day, I've already signed my name and filed them. What? Why would you do that? Don't joke around. Why he would react so aggressively was beyond me. If he didn't want a divorce, he shouldn't have prepared divorce papers or had an affair in the first place. That's not all. Be prepared because I'll also be filing for compensation. Goodbye. With that, I left the house. As I did, I could hear my husband's pathetic attempt at a parting shot. Go ahead, do whatever you want. I'll be fine because I'm going to marry Wendy. I never needed someone like you who's just like a maid. How pitiful to only be able to spit out such a retort. Moreover, his plans to remarry the junior wouldn't necessarily go as he imagined. Of course, my revenge wasn't over just yet. Aaron, what is this all about? A few days later, my now ex-husband contacted me in a panic. What's got you so flustered? Can't you explain calmly? How can I stay calm? The landlord called me saying I need to vacate the apartment quickly. Did you have anything to do with this? Yes, that. You're right. What? What do you mean by that? Don't mess with me. I wasn't joking at all. It seems he needs a detailed explanation to understand. Remember, that apartment was bought for us to live in together, wasn't it? What are you talking about now? There's no need to say things that are already clear. No, it's important. After buying it, there were still rent payments to be made. If I go that far, do you understand why you need to leave? What are you saying? Weren't the rent and utility payments covered by my money? Since you weren't working, you couldn't have afforded to pay for anything, right? So you misunderstood that. Misunderstood, what? Even though I had quit my job, it didn't mean I was without my own earnings. I was doing some freelance work within a range that wouldn't interfere with household matters. So what? Seems like he still didn't get it. It looks like I have to spell everything out for him to understand. Using the experience I gained working at your father's company, I started an online apparel business, and it went well. I was able to make the payments with my own money without needing to use yours. What? So, after you left the apartment, no payments were made on this apartment? He finally got it. Leaving all household matters to me but not thinking about anything. So basic and important truly astounds me. It's surprising he thought he was the one making the payments all along. This is ridiculous. Do something about it. No way. We're divorced, and since I won't be living there anymore, I have no reason to make the payments. If you want to stay there, you'll have to figure it out yourself. This can't be happening. My ex-husband just muttered weakly. If he's not willing to pay for it himself, then leaving is the only option left. Well, that's not my problem anymore. Is that all? Then, I'm hanging up now. I firmly told my ex-husband and hung up the phone. A few days later, I received a call from my senior colleague, informing me that the president wanted to meet with me. It was important, so he wanted to meet in person. I arranged a time to visit the company I used to work for. A week later, I was at the company, called by the president to his office. Excuse me. Upon entering, I saw my ex-husband and his mistress were also there. I've been waiting for you. Sorry to call you out like this. But why are John and Wendy here? My ex-husband looked down with a grim expression. When I asked about their presence, the president explained the reason for calling me. I only recently found out the reason for your divorce. I thought it was necessary to set things straight. I'm truly sorry for what my foolish son has done. No, President, you've done nothing wrong. Please, lift your head. The president then looked sternly at my ex-husband and his mistress and said, "Right. The ones who should really be apologizing to Aaron are you two. Aaron, I'm really sorry. Please forgive me. Ms. Baker, I truly regret everything." Scared by the president's imposing demeanor, they apologized to me. I never knew the usually gentle president could be so intimidating. But why apologize now? I understand you wouldn't have apologized if the president hadn't spoken up. The president sighed and explained. At first, I didn't know the reason for your divorce. It's embarrassing to admit. When I asked John, he would look away, seeming to hide something. I sensed something was off, so I talked to Denise and other employees you were close with. I see. Now I could understand the situation. My ex-husband had an affair with his mistress and even had a child with her. This was the cause of our divorce, which had now come to the president's attention. Dad, please don't be so mad. It was just a momentary lapse. A momentary lapse? Are you joking? What my ex-husband was thinking, I couldn't say. But it was clear he had chosen the wrong way to defend himself. The president values connections with the community. And people highly and detests betrayal the most. Being his son, he should have understood that better than anyone. Enough. Someone like you is not needed in this company. You're fired. Dad, please, have mercy. After being fired, my ex-husband pleaded with the president, who remained unmoved and continued sternly. Shut up. Don't play the father-son card with me. I no longer consider you my son. And don't expect any financial support from me. From now on, you'll have to manage on your own. This can't be happening. The president firmly made his stance clear, leaving my ex-husband speechless and defeated. I thought, right. I need to mention that as well. I had my doubts about my ex-husband and his mistress, but had not mentioned it to him, thinking he wouldn't believe me and would just laugh it off. Now, I felt there was no risk in bringing it up. Hey, John. About the child you and Wendy have. I think it would be wise to do a DNA test to see if the child is really yours. What? Wait, Ms. Baker, why would you say something like that out of the blue? My statement left my ex-husband bewildered and his mistress visibly flustered. Wendy's reaction seems to indicate she knows something. Wendy, what does this mean? Nothing. It's nothing. Don't say weird things, Ms. Baker. It's just strange when you think about it. Wendy had retired to get married before John and I did. I divorced my previous husband. The child was conceived with John after that. Knowing Wendy's history of being close to many men and her reputation within the company, it was hard to take her explanation at face value. If you're certain it's John's child, then there's no harm in being confident about it. What happens next is up to John. I'm just offering advice, not forcing anything. What's that supposed to mean? As she said this, the mistress's face contorted in frustration, while my ex-husband watched her with a look of suspicion. Aaron, thank you for coming today. I'm truly sorry for the trouble. No, I feel relieved now. Thank you. Then I left the president's office. Some days later, my ex-husband contacted me to say he had the child tested. Just like you said, the child isn't mine. I see. It doesn't really matter to me, though. I thought the child might have been from Wendy's previous husband. But given her history of flings, it's unclear whose it is. Apparently, I was the one with the most money when she got pregnant. I see. It's good that the truth came out. It seemed my ex-husband was merely used by his mistress for his resources. If things had continued, he might have been exploited without ever realizing it. He thanked me for the advice and mentioned that he had broken up with Wendy. Later, my ex-husband seemed to reflect on his actions and managed to find a new job. He even began to pay compensation, albeit in installments. As for my life afterwards, Ms. Hill, it's a relief to have you back at the company. I have high hopes for you. Let's look forward to working together again. Thank you, President. I'm looking forward to it too. Despite the past relationship as in-laws, my good rapport and work performance from before my resignation led to my reemployment. It's great to work with you again, Aaron. It feels nostalgic, doesn't it? We used to create great products together. Indeed. Let's do our best again. The president and my senior colleague give me proper recognition. Because of that, I truly enjoy working at this company. I hope to continue collaborating with everyone, working hard, and leading a fulfilling life.
I'm going to return a monster like you. Ha ha ha.
My husband coldly said that to me, a person who has suffered severe burns on my face. He narrowed his eyes and twisted his lips. He snorted with laughter, and it was clear he was mocking me. However, the cause of my burns was my husband. We got into an argument, and in his irritation he pushed me hard. I lost my balance and ended up plunging headfirst into the stove. That was what happened.
It's your own carelessness. What, are you saying I did? There's no way it's my fault.
He kept insisting he was not to blame. He never once apologized or showed concern. To make matters worse, he hurled terrible insults at me and even presented me with divorce papers. Exhausted by the unreasonable treatment and verbal abuse, I decided to take those papers and go back to my parents' house. I explained everything to my welcoming parents, including how I got the burns and what my husband had said to me. My dad's vein on his forehead was about to explode, and my mom's usually calm face turned into a scary look. It was clear they were angry for me. Then my father said,
Shall we make him regret this?
He's on a mission to get back at my husband. My name is Cindy. I'm 32 years old. I'm currently single, living at my parents' house and working from home. However, I'm a divorcee. A year ago, I divorced my former husband, Patrick, who was at fault. He was a colleague at my workplace. He was in charge of my training when I was a newcomer, and at that time, I had a strong impression that he was a kind person. Gradually, we became closer, and our conversations outside of work increased. Our relationship deepened quickly as we started having lunch together and going out for meals after work.
I like you. Would you go out with me?
Our relationship began with his confession, and those times were still filled with happiness. He always gave me presents on anniversaries and bouquets on ordinary days. I often thought how happy I would be every day if I married him. I couldn't imagine a future without him, so when he proposed, I immediately said yes. But from there, difficult days began. Now, being away from Patrick, I am able to spend peaceful days. I still dream about those times occasionally, but I'm not as troubled or depressed as before. I believe all this is thanks to my parents' kindness. Because they were there, I was able to recover mentally to this extent. My father is 63 years old, retired, but still in good health without any sign of slowing down.
Let me know if you need anything,
is his favorite saying, and he's been very reliable. My mother is a bit younger than my father, skilled in cooking, and has a bright personality. Though I sometimes take on the dinner preparation thinking I shouldn't always rely on her, I still can't match her cooking. Living at home has not only improved my mental health, but also my physical condition gradually. I still have a large burn scar on my face and I'm currently undergoing treatment. Compared to when I first got the injury, it has healed quite a bit. It took various experiences to reach this point in my life. It goes back to about 6 months after I married Patrick, 3 years ago.
Sorry, Cindy. Actually, I have a debt.
That fact came to light one day when he told me. After dinner, instead of our usual cheerful drinking and laughing while watching TV, he awkwardly spoke up. I gazed at his face, wondering if that's why he was slow with his fork that day. He stubbornly avoided eye contact, focusing intently on a corner of the table. Perhaps he thought it was better to come clean sooner or later since it would inevitably come out as we continued our married life. Because Patrick's income alone was not enough to repay the debt by himself, I had no choice but to help with the debt repayment. Even though we both worked, our household finances became unmanageable once living expenses and debt repayment overlapped. We gave up on spending money on hobbies and cut down on food expenses, but there was a limit to that. With no financial leeway left, we ended up living with Patrick's mother's house.
I'm so happy that Patrick and Cindy are living with me. It's been lonely living alone since my husband passed away a few years ago.
My mother-in-law, who had been living alone since losing her husband a few years ago, gave us a warm welcome. Seeing this, I felt relieved. I thought I wouldn't have to worry about being mistreated as a daughter-in-law. We should be able to live together harmoniously, all three of us. That was my naive thought, and I soon realized my mistake. My mother-in-law's acceptance of our living together was not just because she was lonely. She wanted a new source of income. She was vain and quite extravagant with money.
You'll be laughed at by people around you if you use cheap stuff. You have to own at least 1 or 2 brand name items.
She would come home with high-brand shopping bags, not just once or twice. And while she said 1 or 2, there were numerous brand name bags, wallets, and shoes in the house. Isn't it unnecessary to buy so many? Especially wallets and pouches. I think having one each is enough. I timidly tried to point this out. I wouldn't complain if all the purchases were made with her own money. The problem was that she kept asking me for money. I contributed to the household expenses for the three of us, and initially, my mother-in-law would withdraw money from her own account to buy luxury items. But presumably, her savings ran out. Eventually, she started asking me,
Cindy dear, could you lend me some money, please?
She said she would pay it back someday, but that never happened. I learned the hard way that the often heard promise of paying back money lent should not be trusted. I took on multiple part-time jobs to support our finances. Knowing my payday was approaching, my mother-in-law would start pressuring me.
Your salary is coming soon, right? Then lend me some money, will you?
Her demands became more intense day by day and my spirit was gradually worn down. I was being cornered both financially and mentally. Hey, can you please ask your mother not to waste money? It's tough for me to be asked to lend money over and over. Unable to bear it any longer, I decided to ask Patrick for help. I thought his mother would listen if her own son spoke up rather than his wife. However, his response was cold.
It's not like you're being asked to lend money until you're out of savings, right? Then just listen to what my mom says.
Hearing that made my blood boil. His mother had never asked Patrick for money, only me. He could speak so indifferently because he wasn't the one being asked to lend money. Wait, I get it if it's about food or utilities, stuff that involves us both. But why do I have to pay for your mother's bags, jewelry, or decorative items? Isn't that ridiculous? Perhaps irritated by my rare rebuttal, Patrick also started to get agitated. Our argument escalated, and frustrated by the deadlock, he pushed me hard. Normally, I might have staggered a few steps and regained my balance, but perhaps due to consecutive days of work fatigue, I easily lost my balance and plunged headfirst into a nearby stove. It's hot! It hurts! I did the bare minimum first aid, like running cold water over it. Given my panicked and irrational behavior, even Patrick must have realized it was serious. Yet, he said dismissively,
Shut up. It'll heal if you just cool it down.
Showing no concern at all. Having no choice, I called a taxi myself and hurried to the hospital. I received treatment from a specialist immediately, but I was left with a large burn scar on my face.
How did this happen?
When the doctor asked for the cause, Patrick, who had come along as a companion, awkwardly turned his face away. I lost my balance and fell, headfirst into the stove. I didn't say it was Patrick's fault, but as I spoke slowly, harboring deep anger and sadness inside, he conspicuously hung his head, perhaps aware of his guilt.
Your injury is not my fault. You just dove in on your own.
Although Patrick hadn't said a word in the hospital, once we got home, he began to shout angrily.
It's your carelessness. What, are you saying I did? There's no way I'm at fault.
He continued to insist over and over that he was not to blame, and that it was my fault. I said nothing and just waited for the storm to pass. After about 30 minutes, Patrick finally stopped talking, but his irritation did not subside. Breathing heavily, he glared at me, trembling with rage. Then he began to violently open and close drawers in the room as if looking for something. He emerged with a large Boston bag slung over his shoulder.
I can't live with a monster like you. I'm leaving.
With that, he left the house, deliberately making his footsteps heard. All I could do was watch his actions, mouth agape.
It's your fault Patrick left. What are you going to do about it?
My mother-in-law, who persistently demanded money and now blamed me, ignoring her own actions. I was not at fault in this situation. In fact, I was the victim. Sure, my words might have triggered the argument, but it all started because she demanded money and Patrick did nothing to stop her. Yet why am I the one being blamed so much? The verbal abuse from my mother-in-law continued for a week until Patrick returned, but he didn't come back because he had cooled down.
Let's get a divorce. I'm returning a monster like you.
He presented me with divorce papers. Exhausted by the unreasonable treatment and verbal abuse, I decided to go back to my parents' house with those papers.
What happened?
You're crying so much. And that burn. Seeing the two of them, I broke down and started crying like a child. My father patted my head, and my mother gently led me to the living room. I explained in detail what had happened at my in-laws' house, and about the verbal abuse from Patrick and his mother through my sobs. My dad's vein on his forehead was about to explode, and my mom's usually calm face turned into a scary look. Patrick said he's returning a monster like me.
Unforgivable. To say such things to our precious daughter.
My mother looked to my father for agreement.
Yes. Cindy, shall we make them regret this?
It was clear he was referring to Patrick and his mother. I nodded. What they had done to me was unforgivable. I refused to suffer in silence, bearing anger and regret. Upon confirming my decision, my father, using the skills he acquired during his active career, began to devise a plan.
Cindy, did he have a personal credit card?
No, we had a family one. With that answer, my father started by checking the card's history. Upon reviewing the online statements, he discovered something. Patrick has stayed at the same hotel outside the county several times in the past few months. He had also dined out multiple times before and after those stays. It might seem like just a trip or business travel. However, my father felt something was off and quickly found out the exact locations Patrick had visited, then left to go there himself. His agility was astonishing. A few days later, my father returned home with a somewhat triumphant look. In his hand was an envelope loaded with implications.
We got him. I've obtained plenty of evidence of his infidelity.
As he said this and opened the envelope, there lay a series of photos capturing Patrick in the act of cheating. It was unforgivable that he had been with other women while I struggled to earn money. Thanks to his professional skills in moving unnoticed, my father had managed to gather material to corner Patrick. I called him.
What do you want, monster? You still have something for me? You're not hoping for a reunion, are you?
His opening remarks left me dumbfounded. As if I would want that. What are you talking about? We haven't filed the divorce papers yet. Can you come over to my parents' house to talk about the divorce? I knew he would come, wanting to be rid of me as soon as possible. Sure enough, an hour after the call, the doorbell rang. As I opened the door to let him in, Patrick was catching his breath as if he had run here, desperate to be done with me.
Let's get straight to the point. You've been cheating for a while, haven't you? Planning to divorce before getting caught was your plan, right?
No sooner had Patrick sat down than my father launched into the heart of the matter, causing Patrick's breath to become even more erratic.
No, what are you talking about? I haven't done anything like that.
He stammered a denial, unable to look us in the eye when the conversation turned inconvenient, just like when he had disclosed his debt, staring at the corner of our dining table instead. Without missing a beat, my father began laying out the photos of Patrick's infidelity on the table. As the table filled up, Patrick's breathing quickened, betraying his panic.
These photos are fake. Someone must have set me up. Maybe they're edited? The evidence isn't just these photos. We've got videos too.
Patrick, not anticipating videos, widened his eyes in shock. We'll use this evidence to demand compensation from you. My firm statement seemed to be the last straw for him, and he left without a word. A few days later, Patrick returned to my parents' house, but this time he wasn't alone. He brought his mother with him. They incessantly rang the doorbell until I reluctantly cracked the door open, only for them to force their way in.
This is all your fault. You've ruined my life.
Exactly. We're going to sue you for damages.
Their shouts filled the house, bombarding my eardrums with their incomprehensible logic. Why would they demand compensation from me? Despite the situation, I couldn't help but be puzzled, mirrored by my parents' baffled expressions. Patrick's affair partner turned out to be the daughter of the president of the company where he worked. My father, analyzing the photos and videos, had identified her and sent a demand for damages to the company. The company was thrown into chaos. The rumor of their affair spread quickly, and both were viewed with disdain. The president's daughter had been seen as a paragon of virtue, and the revelation of her affair, especially with a lowly employee, caused even greater uproar. The president, furious upon hearing the news, deemed their actions unacceptable. Given his disdain for misconduct, he fired both Patrick and his daughter. Patrick attempted to argue, but, already discredited by his debt, had no choice but to accept his fate. What enraged Patrick's mother wasn't his dismissal per se, but the loss of income it entailed, adversely affecting her. She didn't just see me as a cash cow, but her son as well. I sighed in disbelief at her selfish nature.
It's all your fault. Now I have no money to spend.
She stomped her feet and flailed her hands, looking like nothing more than a child throwing a tantrum when things didn't go her way.
How dare you, being a monster?
What do you mean by calling her a monster?
My father intervened calmly. In her anger-impaired judgment, Patrick's mother answered every question she was asked.
Patrick pushed her, and that's how she fell face first into the stub. But it's not his fault, okay? She lost her balance all by herself.
My father managed to make her talk about the circumstances under which I got burned. He smiled smugly and stopped the recording on the recorder he had hidden on his back. Now we have all the evidence we need. We'll be claiming for the affair as well as the burns. That was all we needed to discuss that day. I told Patrick and his mother to leave our house. Patrick then suddenly changed his demeanor.
You! What are you recording, huh? Don't mess with me, you coward!
He yelled and lunged at me. His eyes bulging, teeth bared, he looked like a demon. His hand stretched out to grab my collar seemed to move in slow motion. The memory of our argument before I got burned flashed back. He had pushed me hard then too. Frozen with fear of being injured again, my legs wouldn't move. Just as Patrick's hand almost reached me, my father acted. With agility, bellying his age, he restrained Patrick. In no time, Patrick was face down on the floor, his arms secured by my father. It turns out my father had once been part of the police special forces. Always possessing a strong sense of justice and confidence in his physical strength, he made good use of it. Though retired, he never skipped his daily training, maintaining his muscle and often looking younger than his age.
Get off me, damn it! That hurts! That pain is nothing compared to what my daughter endured.
With a glare sharp as a bird of prey, my father stared down at Patrick struggling. The pain my father mentioned wasn't just the physical burns, but also the emotional torment inflicted by Patrick and his mother.
A man who can't protect his family doesn't deserve to be a husband. Stay away from my precious daughter forever.
With a stern voice, Patrick's resolve crumbled and his flailing ceased.
Cindy, call the police.
Okay, I will. The mention of the police made them twitch, but they didn't run. Silence fell as we awaited the police, a stark contrast to the earlier commotion. Soon, officers arrived and took the now docile Patrick and his mother away.
Thank you for your cooperation.
After seeing my face, the officer looked at my father and saluted him. Thanks to the evidence my father gathered, I managed to get proper compensation from both Patrick and the president's daughter he had an affair with. They couldn't deny their actions with the evidence at hand. Furthermore, I received repayment for my burns from Patrick and all the money I had lent to his mother. They had no choice but to sell their luxury items to come up with the money. I was able to use that money for my burn treatments. While scars haven't completely disappeared, they're gradually fading. Patrick, still burdened with his previous debts, now has to work endlessly just to make ends meet. Patrick's mother, who had never worked while I was living at their house and spent her days going out, was now hustling just like Patrick because selling bags and accessories alone wasn't enough to cover her debts. I was surprised to see such a change in her, who used to dress up with lots of jewelry and now reportedly wears the same sweats every day.
Why'd I have to work this hard?
It can't be helped, right? We have debts to pay off.
They are said to be living in constant quarrels every day. I heard this through rumors, so I can't be sure if it's true. After all, I have completely cut ties with both of them. But just hearing about it, I can easily picture the scene. I'm living peaceful and happy days with my parents. To give back to them, I am planning to take them on a trip. Imagining their joyous faces, I couldn't help but smile.
My name is Sherry Gibson, and I am a 30-year-old licensed psychologist. I work as a psychological counselor, mainly conducting online counseling from home. My husband, Joseph Clarkson, is also 30 years old. He works for a relatively large pharmaceutical company. Joseph and I met through work and have been married for 4 years. 2 years ago, Joseph begged me to remodel his childhood home to create our own house where we could live with his mother, Debbie. Ever since losing his father 4 years ago, Debbie has been disprinted and Joseph being a mama's boy instead of living together. He started to remodeling without considering my wishes. Living with Debbie was not pleasant, but I managed to endure her mistreatment. Amidst this endurance, I discovered that Joseph had a mistress. Moreover, his mistress was pregnant. I was then abruptly presented with a divorce. After finding out about my husband's affair and the pregnancy, I decided to divorce. The first step was to leave the house. To this, I set a condition. I'll be taking everything I bought. Is that okay? Yes, take them. I don't need your used stuff. True to her words, I moved out all the furniture and appliances I had purchased. As I finished moving out, Joseph and Debbie came to see the situation. What they saw was a completely empty space, not a speck of dust inside. Joseph and Debbie turned pale. I have bought the furniture and appliances for an amount Joseph, relegated to a minor position in his company, could never afford. If he resented it, he should prepare everything with his own money. How did our marriage become so complicated in just 4 years? Let me unravel this story. Mr. Clarkson, thank you for your hard work as always. I used to work at a psychiatric clinic where Joseph, as a pharmaceutical company employee, would deliver medications. Every day I greeted him. No, it's my job. Isn't it tough to travel by car in this scorching weather? Is your air conditioning on full blast? I always ask Joseph such questions, prolonging our conversations. My old light car struggles when I use the air conditioner. I enjoyed these trivial conversations, but I heard that Joseph was going to be assigned to someone else. This meant I wouldn't see him anymore. Mr. Clarkson, how about a farewell party? I bravely asked, leading to our eventual marriage. Joseph was an employee at a major pharmaceutical company, delivering drugs to hospitals and clinics. I worked as a psychological counselor at the clinic. The increasing number of patients year by year was concerning. Death comes so suddenly. I know it's not the right time to say this, but I can't hold back. Sherry, will you marry me? What? Are you okay? This is not the right thing to say right after your father passed away. I'm not expecting a romantic proposal, but now, really? Joseph was deeply shocked by his father's death. His father, a carpenter, had died in a fall at a construction site. It was too sudden. I regret not being able to show my father his grandchild. He loved his children so much. I don't want to leave my mom with regrets, so I want to marry you, Sherry, and start our own family. Though it was a proposal born from his vulnerability, I was genuinely happy. However, this marked the beginning of enduring mistreatment from my mother-in-law, Debbie. Hi, I'm coming in. Why are the curtains closed on such a sunny day? Debbie frequently visited our rented apartment, located just a 10-minute walk from Joseph's childhood home. I understood she was lonely, but it was troublesome as she often stayed for dinner, leaving me puzzled over the menu. You said you work from home, but such home-based jobs don't even earn $1,000 a month. Instead of that, you should cook more dishes for Joseph's dinner. He comes home tired every day. Debbie always referred to Joseph as Joe, and so did his relatives and neighbors. Mother, what I do is a bit different from home-based job. Haven't you heard about an era where meetings and classes can be held online, like Zoom? There you go again, making fun of me. You're nearly 30, a proper old lady yourself. Debbie never understood my online counseling work, stubbornly refusing to acknowledge anything unfamiliar to her. She wouldn't accept or learn anything new. I deliberately work from home so I don't neglect household chores. Why don't you just have a child already? That's your role. I could do a job of just listening to people's problems. Stop acting like you're some important person. I'm home. When Joseph arrives home, Debbie runs to the entrance to greet him. Since Joseph, their only son, lived at home until our marriage, Debbie must be lonely without her husband. I understand that, but honestly, her frequent visits are bothersome. Today, Sherry and I made dumpling, Joe's favorite. I've drilled into Sherry how to make the Clarkson family's special dumpling sauce, so don't worry. Sherry thought dumpling sauce was just soy sauce mixed with chili oil. Sherry, you should learn to cook properly from Mom. When we first got married, she'd eat fried eggs with ketchup. It's usually soy sauce, right? I can't have a decent meal unless you fix Sherry's poor taste in food. Come to think of it, Joe, you've lost weight since you got married, haven't you? I wanted to shout out that it's not true. Recently, Joseph has been gaining weight. He had a health checkup at work and was warned about his high cholesterol levels. Therefore, I've been careful with calories and carbs when cooking. Thanks to that, Joseph has been losing weight healthily. I've been living like this for 2 years, but one day Joseph said something unbelievable. I've been thinking about remodeling the family home. It's pretty old, you know. The plumbing and everything is the worst. It's hot in the summer, cold in the winter, and even though it's not in the countryside, the layout is inconvenient. It's a good opportunity to remodel the house and live there together. What? Is this a misunderstanding? Living with your mother, right? It's silly to pay rent for a place 10 minutes away from the family home. Might as well live in the family home. If we remodel it, it'll be comfortable for everyone, right? We've talked about wanting our own home in the future, haven't we? If we have kids, we'll want a room for them. And living with mom could mean she'll help out. Where's the money for that coming from? Remodeling the whole house will cost a lot, right? You mean you'll keep paying the loan, right? My dad left us some money, which I can use as a down payment. I can handle the monthly payments within my range, probably a loan until I'm 65. Is this really okay? I've been surprised by how low Joseph's salary is since we got married. I earned much more when I was counseling at the psychiatric clinic. It will work out. So, we're good with that then? If that's the case, I have a condition. I want a workspace for myself. For your online counseling, you just need a computer, right? I need an environment where I can concentrate and handle personal information. You and your mother might not understand, but counseling is a very sensitive job. Even someone like me is their last hope, desperately trying to improve their situation. It's my mission to guide them in the right direction, so I can't do it half-heartedly. It kind of sounds like fortune telling. Counseling and fortune telling are completely different. All right, I'll talk to the architect. Following that, Joseph's family home was remodeled. A few weeks before the remodeling was completed, Joseph suddenly remembered, I forgot the most important thing. We need suitable furniture and appliances for the new house. I'll leave that to Sherry, who has a sense of style. What? That's like playing rock, paper, scissors after the fact. I wasn't informed about this. It must have been his plan from the start to have me pay for the furniture and appliances. His contrived way of speaking made me want to retort, Can't you act better than that? The Clarkson family has invested everything we can into this remodel. Sherry, you're going to live in this house for a long time too. You should be willing to bear some of the cost. To be honest, you earn much more than I do. Perhaps as a husband, he feels inferior and ashamed that his wife earns more. Now that the house is almost finished, I can't refuse. If I look at it positively, I can furnish and equip the house according to my taste. And so, our new home was completed. This house feels so impersonal. I went with a black and white theme. I thought simplicity would be nice. It's only a matter of time before Debbie fills it with her stuff. She's bad at tidying up and can't throw things away. Therefore, there's a chance our home could turn into a junkyard. Sherry and I really don't get along. I wanted a home with more wood and warmth. This doesn't feel comfortable at all. You'll get used to it as we live here. Have you already prepared tonight's dinner? Recently, Joseph has been coming home early, hasn't he? Dinner needs to be ready by 7. But Sherry is just literally looking at her computer. Having a workroom made for herself, who does she think she is? If I didn't work, this house would fall apart. Saying that would be so satisfying. Debbie doesn't know that Joseph's salary hasn't been coming in. Joseph claimed it was just delayed, but I think something has happened. I'm just too afraid to ask. Hey Sherry, why don't you see a doctor? About what? It's strange that you haven't had a child after 4 years of marriage. I got a referral to a fertility treatment specialist. A friend of mine's daughter-in-law started treatment and had twins. She was so happy. So why don't you get checked out? Then, shouldn't Joseph get tested too? Infertility isn't just a woman's issue. There's also male infertility. You always have an answer for everything. Sherry, you should learn to be more modest and considerate. Listening to people's problems with that attitude is just fraud. Don't blame me if you get sued one day. This kind of exchange happens all the time. I wish Debbie would spend her time on hobbies or traveling. Maybe we argue because we are both at home all day with too much time on our hands. I'm thinking of giving Mom a trip as a present. Joseph said this suddenly one night after getting out of the bath. Mom is turning 60, right? She looks young, but she's been having a lot of pains here and there. She went to the hospital recently, didn't she? Yes, she went to the orthopedist because her back was hurting. She got some plasters and then rubbed herself up dramatically. Booked a restaurant in Chinatown for her birthday celebration. And buy a travel voucher worth $1,000 as a present. Why did I have to do it? She's your mother, not mine. She'll be happier if her beloved son arranged it, not her disliked daughter-in-law. Sherry, you often don't understand your role as a wife. Just because you earn a bit more, don't forget this household isn't ruled by you, but by my mother. Our arguments are always about Debbie. With Joseph being such a mama's boy, all I can do is be a bystander. While planning Debbie's birthday celebration, she came home in a good mood. She had been out for coffee at the neighbor's house for over 6 hours. Shall I make dinner today? Something good must have happened. She's so simple and easy to read. Debbie started preparing the pot and waited for Joseph to return. So, don't be surprised. Maggie is back home. Joseph arrived to find Debbie excited at the entrance. At the dinner table, she kept reporting to Joseph, leaving me to take care of the pot. Maggie is back? It's been 5 or 6 years since she got married. She was only 22 back then. Hasn't she returned since? Well, everyone was against Maggie's marriage. She eloped. And now she's back with her 3-year-old son, who is just adorable. Maggie's mother? Wow, I can't imagine it. So why did she come back? Did her parents forgive her? She got divorced. Coming back to her parents' house, she must have been really desperate. But Maggie was as bright and energetic as ever. She's become so beautiful. So, she's staying at her parents for a while. I'd like to see her. I told her to come over tomorrow with her son. Maggie wants to meet Joe's wife. I honestly thought this was a hassle. In a house where I have no memories and need to get along with the neighbors, I have a mission. Maggie was a childhood friend of mine who lived nearby. Joseph explained to me in advance. The next day, Maggie really came to visit with her 3-year-old son, Kevin. Maggie stared at me intently and smiled meaningfully. "Sherry, can you play with Kevin for a bit?" While Debbie and Maggie left Kevin in my care and got absorbed in their chat, I found it quite challenging to entertain him. Running around the house and not satisfied with the toys they brought, he was delighted in drawing on our house windows. It's still hard to believe Maggie is a mom. The same Maggie who used to be such a crybaby. "Stop it, Joel. What are you talking about from back then?" Maggie and Kevin are, of course, having dinner at our house. Naturally, I'm the one who prepared it. If you ask me, I'm surprised that Joel got married. You never seemed interested in marriage, right? So you must have really fallen for your wife to get married. Well, it was also for Mom's sake. I wanted to give her some peace of mind, especially after Dad passed away and we both were feeling down. I thought getting married and maybe having kids would make the family more lively and fun. Even though Joseph doesn't talk this much with me, he never seemed to run out of things to say with Maggie. They chatted until late into the night, and I ended up watching over Kevin the whole time. From that day on, Maggie began visiting our house frequently. The trouble was her habit of leaving Kevin with me. I had my counseling work too. "I'm sorry, but I have work, so I can't watch Kevin all the time. Also, please make sure Kevin doesn't enter my room when I'm working." Counseling is quite profitable, isn't it? You charge more than $100 per hour per person, right? I think that's pretty overpriced. Just counseling 5 people a day brings in $500. It's a good business, isn't it? People who graduate from college really are different. Maggie said this with a tone of sarcasm. Having just met her recently, she was being tough on me, with Debbie fully on her side. "Hey Joe, can't you go to the aquarium with me on your next day off?" Kevin really wants to go. Sure, I go. Kevin is quite fond of me. Joseph began spending more and more time with Maggie and Kevin. Initially, the 3 of them would go out together, but lately, he leaves Kevin with me and goes out just with Maggie. Isn't it infidelity to leave his wife behind and go on a date with his childhood friend? It's fine if you go out with Maggie, but please take Kevin with you. I conceded this much. You know I work from home, right? Kevin running around shouting and barging into rooms disrupt my work. It's problematic for my profession. I have a job that depends on my patience. You always use your work as a shield, but if it's that troublesome, why don't you just quit? There's no need to work from home. A house isn't a place for work. If the family gets in the way, why not go out and work somewhere else? Is that okay even if I work outside? You're the one who said it, Joseph. You always wanted me to be at home, so I chose a job that balances housework and work. I haven't slacked off in household duties, and I'm managing my job well. So annoying. Maggie wouldn't fuss over such little things. She's working hard raising her child, so it's only right we help her out. Really, Sherry, you're so narrow-minded and cold. At this point, the Clarkson household was practically overtaken by Maggie. At the same time, Joseph and Maggie were rapidly getting closer. One day, I overheard a conversation between Joseph and Maggie. They were openly engaging in an affair in our house. Joe has always been my ally, a hero of justice from the past. Even as an adult, Joe is still my hero. In a sweet voice she never shows in front of me, Maggie leans on Joseph, speaking intimately. Joseph, with his extended nose, even seems unclean to me. Maggie, you've had it tough. I never imagined you were suffering from domestic violence. That must have been hard. It was tough. I couldn't rely on my family, and I didn't know what to do. Kevin is still young, and if I were a more independent woman, I could have escaped and worked. I didn't have an education or qualifications. I didn't have the courage to go on as a single mother. I wish I had come back earlier. Then Joe wouldn't have gotten married. Men are deceived by such words. Joseph, no exception, feels good about it, becoming even more sympathetic and attentive. Joe was my first love. That was the moment Joseph fell in love. Despite having her parents' house nearby, Maggie frequently and boldly visited the Clarkson home. Maggie, you're such a good cook. I've changed my mind about you. After having someone's half-hearted cooking all the time, this tastes so good. I feel slighted by the term half-hearted. I always cook from scratch as much as possible. To speak ill of it, Maggie's cooking is mostly high-calorie, brown-color dishes. Somehow, Debbie is trying to compare me with Maggie, making Maggie look better. I wish Maggie had married into our family. Finally, Debbie said such a thing. But if Maggie were to marry Joseph, Debbie would surely torment her as a daughter-in-law. Right now, she is kind to Maggie because she's just a childhood friend returning home. For Debbie, any wife of Joseph's would be unsatisfactory. Sherry is smart. I've heard that smartphones have trouble having children. That's right. She can't have children. That makes her unfit as a wife. Whenever there's something, it's all about work. But what Sherry really needs to do is take care of the house. It's just a matter of time before Joseph gets fed up with Sherry. When that happens, we'll count on you, Maggie. Saying this, Debbie and Maggie laughed. Despite being ridiculed to this extent, I wonder if there's any meaning in staying in this house. I realized that Debbie officially recognized the relationship between Joseph and Maggie. I've gathered everyone here today to talk about something important between me and Sherry. On this day, Joseph called me, Debbie, and Maggie together for an important discussion. Maggie is pregnant. Oh, that's wonderful, Maggie. When's the due date? Which maternity clinic are you planning to go to? If it's a maternity clinic, you should go to the Anderson Maternity Clinic where Joe was delivered. Debbie's excitement rises. Sherry, I'm sorry, but that's the situation. The divorce discussion was surprisingly brief. With Maggie's pregnancy, I had no other choice but divorce. Maggie, how many months pregnant are you? 3 months. You barely seemed quite large for that. The doctor was also surprised that it's bigger than usual. It's big, so we already know it's a boy. Sherry, you're being unsightly. You're just jealous because you can't have children. Ultimately, you and Joe are just incompatible in many ways. It's a good opportunity. Without it, Joe couldn't have broken up with you. Joe is kind, you know. He's been considerate, not wanting to hurt you. Kevin is also fond of Joe and calls him Dad. All that's left is for Sherry to step back. I quickly filled out the divorce papers, and the next day, Joseph submitted our divorce papers and Maggie's marriage registration. That was quick. I still have belongings here, so I'm staying in the Clarkson house until I find a new place to live. Maggie, looking triumphant, and Debbie in a good mood. Just seeing them irritates me, but I manage my anger. After all, I am a counselor with a certified psychologist qualification. Yet, I felt like saying something in return. By the way, can you afford to support us with Joseph's salary? What? You are bringing up money now? What about money? You're just looking down on me because you have a bit of income yourself. But you quit your job, right? Or should I say, you were forced to quit? Debbie and Maggie looked at Joseph with a surprised expression. What? What do you mean, Joe? I quit on my own accord. That useless company couldn't recognize my talents. It was a toxic workplace inside and out. Quitting was the right decision. You've been sidelined for quite some time, haven't you? The hell of having no work all day. Just sitting there getting the minimum wage. Joseph, you got sidelined at work because of the big mistake, right? Even then, you clung to the company and got sidelined, but didn't tell me or your mother because you were ashamed? That's none of your business. Right, it's no longer my concern since we've divorced. So even under these circumstances, Maggie, you still want to marry Joseph? Maggie did not answer immediately. I internally wondered if her expectations had been dashed. From my perspective, I think Joseph's mental state is quite concerning. The series of events at the company might even have traumatized him. Maggie, I hope you understand and support Joseph even with his damaged mental state. I don't think he'll be able to work for a while. That's just my opinion as a professional counselor. That's none of your business, right, Maggie? Sherry is just trying to bring Joe down because she's a sore loser. Sherry, if that's all you have to say, pack your things and leave, even if you haven't found a place yet. Yes, I'll leave. Then, I'll take everything I bought with me. This led to the opening exchange. Joseph, Debbie, and Maggie were at a loss, looking at the empty room. Well, managed somehow. We can't just buy new furniture and appliances. Right, Joe? Where's the money for that going to come from? Joseph got irritated with Debbie. Sherry's just being extreme, taking everything with her. That's not normal. It's her extreme nature, always either 0 or 100. That's how words trade. Say it wherever you want. It's none of my concern anymore. Enjoy playing house. Why are you being confrontational? Are you jealous? It's jealousy, isn't it? How embarrassing at the age of 30. Jealous? Not at all. After all, the child in Maggie's belly isn't Joseph's child. What? What are you talking about? Making up lies is crazy. Then, how about doing a DNA test? That would clarify everything. Joseph and your mother, both of you have fallen right into Maggie's trap. Isn't it time you realize that? The child is Maggie's belly in her ex-husband's. Maggie realized she was pregnant after her divorce, but she didn't want to return to her abusive husband. She was thinking, I wonder if someone could be the father of this child, and that's when she reconnected with Joseph and targeted him. Joseph is simple and gullible, so he was an easy target. Joseph and Debbie's face changed. Maggie remained unshaken even after hearing this. But the timing of the pregnancy matches up. You can't lie about that. It has to be my child, right? You could just claim it was a premature birth. Men wouldn't understand that, would they? She's that prepared. You registered your marriage with Maggie the day after our divorce, right? And you even adopted Kevin as your son. This is Maggie's ultimate goal. You've been completely fooled. You fool, haha. Well, it doesn't really matter. Blood relation isn't everything. Unlike Sherry, Maggie isn't condescending and relies on me, trusting me. For a man, that's not a bad feeling. It's being the head of the family, right? You're desperately defending Maggie, but good luck with the fatherhood. It's not as easy as you think, Joseph. I withdrew from the Clarkson household after 2 years, left behind Joseph, Debbie, and Maggie temporarily renting a weekly apartment. They planned to furnish it with new appliances and furniture, but sorry, I'm embarrassed, but I can't afford the loan payments going forward. Shall we sell the house and move into a used apartment? Kevin is mischievous, and the baby in the belly is a boy, so we don't want a small house. Plus, in an apartment, the kids' footsteps and other noises might bother the neighbors downstairs. Can't we somehow get a detached house? They managed to sell the Clarkson house, but it was significantly underpriced. With that amount, they couldn't afford a house, let alone a used apartment, given their financial situation. Eventually, they moved into a cramped public housing unit. Joseph, traumatized, struggled to find a new job. Meanwhile, Maggie gave birth to the child. The small house was constantly noisy, with Kevin's running around and shouting, and the baby's cries echoing. The Clarkson household was completely overtaken by Maggie's family. As for me, I was hired as an advisor for a magazine's advice column and received positive feedback. Now, I have bought my own apartment and set up a face-to-face counseling room. Thankfully, I am in a state of continuous bookings.